Today we have a warning by Jenny Joseph. When I'm an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beermats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear on the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I'm old and I start to wear purple. Thank you. So this is a poem by Jenny Joseph. This is one of the most popular, it was voted the most popular poem after the Second World War. A survey taken by BBC saw that this poem was included in all the school anthologies. The Reader's Digest, the magazine, has made it very popular by using it in an article. It also gave birth to the Red Hat Society. A Red Hat Society was formed in which all the members had to be above 50, and these ladies would come in wearing red hats, and so many fun activities would be planned for them. They would plan excursions and trips and so on in order to show that age is just a number. So now when you look at the poem, Jenny Joseph wrote the poem when she was only 28 years old. She was not old at all. It was written in 1960. So this is after the Second World War and just before the second wave of feminism came to Europe. The second wave of feminism coming in with Simone de Beauvoir and Betty Friedan. So in this poem, the poet shows us that there are a lot of possibilities for women to explore. Women of that period and right in the early 20th century, before the war, the women were told to be very sensible. Women are always asked to dress sensibly, to be involved in their domestic matters. And about old age, there is an assumption that once you get older, you need to stop doing this, you need to stop going to parties or enjoying. But here, the poet, in a very light-hearted and humorous way, definitely the poem is very humorous, and she tells us that no, old age brings in a lot more possibilities for me. I'm going to start wearing purple and I will wear a red hat and I won't care what people say. She wants to make up for the sobriety of her youth. She says that now I'm a young woman and all young women are told to look after their homes. They have to be model and exemplary for their children. The children are looking at them, so they must not swear. They must not use impolite language. They have to be dressed very formally. Now, when you take the color purple, the very starting is I shall wear purple when I'm old. The color purple stands for vanity in Europe and America. It was the starting of the color purple is from the Roman emperors. So it stood for something like flamboyance, being vain, being very extravagant. So here the poet says, when I'm old, I don't care. I don't care about what somebody else will say or think, what society or its conventions will declare. I shall just wear whatever I please. We all know that when you see a senior citizen and that person is, however the person may be dressed or behaves, the rest of society or those who are younger know that they must not judge. They do not have the right to judge somebody who is senior. And she says, my pension, I will not spend it on sensible things. Always we spend our money on necessities. We spend it on necessities and we usually keep our dreams aside. If a person who loves traveling would say, no, I don't, it's very, very much, it's something not so necessary. Why should I spend on traveling? Let me spend on something that is domestic, on my home. So this is how a woman would think. And here she says, no, I'm going to buy satin sandals. I'm going to enjoy the money that I have worked and earned. I'm going to say that there's no money for butter. She even wants to take a walking stick and tap it on the railings, on the public railings, in order to be mischievous. And we see that this is all a lot of harmless fun that the poet wants to indulge in. And when she says that I want to take flowers from somebody else's garden, we are reminded of a child. It is little children who do not know. They would rush into somebody's garden. If they see a beautiful flower, they just run it and pick it up. So she wants to enjoy a childhood once again and learn to spit. The words learn to spit reminds us of a very iconic movie, The Titanic, in which Kate Winslet is the heroine is telling the hero, will you teach me to spit far into the ocean? Because again, the Titanic was in the beginning of the 20th century. And here the hero is showing her how to spit. And before that, he asks her an important question. Didn't they teach you that in finishing school? So they didn't teach you that in your ladies' finishing school? And she says no. And there is a scene where it has become so famous. There is that scene where he teaches her to spit, and also how the ladies around are looking at her in shock. What is happening? So the Victorian England asked women to be straight laced. They were forced to wear corsets so that their hourglass figures would be maintained. And as they grew older, they would wear colors like beige and brown so that they appeared very sober. And this was actually a restriction on the very breathing of a woman. And they were so against all this in a very mischievous, very light-hearted way, we can say. Jenny Joseph is actually putting in a little bit of rebellion, and the poem is very, very liberating to read. It is written in free verse with no rhyme scheme, and the poem is has been given in various colleges as a parting gift to students as they graduate. Her poems are also came in the Oxford verse of 20th century English poetry. It is one of the most popular poems of the English language. The poem is also thought provoking because even when you say liberating, there is something here to think about, because the poet says, but maybe I ought to practice a little now. So people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I'm old and start to wear purple. This last stanza shows us that our poet, even though she wishes to have fun, is still held by the boundaries of society. She says, maybe I ought to practice a little bit. I should practice this freedom, practice this wish to act on, on my dreams. So here she says, maybe we young women, a young person, should slowly start declaring a war against conventions and slowly wear what you want to wear, behave as you wish, and to be your authentic self. So, at the same time that the poem is liberating, there is also an angle where we see that women are still held back. And the poet is telling this is a warning. In my old age, I am definitely going to tell the conventions to go away and I will own it. Warning by Jenny Joseph. When I'm an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beermats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I'm old and start to wear purple.